decisions. Oh, I just can't make decisions. And what's the right decision to make anyway? Oh, hello. How are you? I'm not that well, actually, because I'm just struggling to make the right decision. I don't know what decision to take. There's so many decisions we need to make all the time, and some are really difficult. Like, should I apologize to my brother for putting jelly in his shoes? But he put toothpaste on my sausages yesterday, so why should I apologize to him? Other decisions are much easier, like, should I have vanilla ice cream or chocolate? Chocolate, of course. But so many of the decisions we make have consequences, and we have to make choices all the time about what we think, what we say, how we behave. And what if our decisions have consequences that aren't so good? For example, I could decide to eat burgers and chips all day long without any greens, but then I'd probably make myself sick. Or I could choose to eat healthily, and then I'd have loads of energy and feel fantastic. I could decide to watch television all day long, but then I'd probably make myself cross-eyed. Or I could choose to use my time creatively, and I could read or write a story, or spend time with family and friends, do a dance, maybe try a recipe, and get the most out of life. And the decisions we make, they're also about what we think about. For example, I could think something bad about someone, like, oh, why do I have to spend time with her? She's so boring. Which will then affect what I say. Go away, I'm busy. Which will then affect what I do. Leave me alone. But if I choose to have a kind thought about someone, aren't I lucky to have her? Then I'll probably say something that will be helpful, like, should we spend some time together today? And then do something that will make her happy. Why don't I help you with that, and then we can pin it on the fridge? So you see, so many of our decisions have consequences, but how can we understand the difference between a wise decision with good consequences and a foolish decision with consequences that aren't so good? Oh, I don't have the answer, but I know where I could find it. Look, the Bible. I always look to the Bible when I'm trying to understand something, because it's like a letter from God to me, to help me to know how I can live my life. Here we are, Matthew chapter 7. I'm sure here I can find some teaching about how to make wise decisions. Jesus was in Galilee, and he was teaching lots and lots of people and preaching to them. In fact, so many had gathered that he'd climbed up a high mountain and stood at the very peak so that he could see everyone and that they could hear him clearly. And he was teaching in his usual way. Now, when Jesus taught, he loved using something called metaphors. Do you know what metaphors are? Oh, I love metaphors. They're a creative way of speaking, a way of speaking in pictures, in riddles, so that you really have to think about what the person is trying to say and the deeper meaning behind it. Jesus loved using metaphors and parables so that he could teach us important things about life. And sometimes you have to try and understand what he means. For example, when he was standing on the mountain and preaching to the people, he said to them, "You are the light of the world." Now, was he trying to say that you're literally a light, like a light bulb that switches on and shines brightly and glows in the darkness and gets warm? Or was he trying to say that the goodness inside of you is like a light which you should let shine so that everyone who sees it can glorify God? Oh, that's a great metaphor. I love that metaphor. He also said to the people, "You are the salt of the earth." Now, did he literally mean that we are a handful of grainy, white, gritty salt from the seaside? Or was he trying to say that just as salt is used to flavor food, so we should flavor the earth with our kindness, with our patience, with our good thoughts? Not get angry and lose our temper, but control our emotions and see the best in everything. I love that metaphor. The other metaphor Jesus used was he said to the people, don't look at the speck in everyone else's eyes, but look at the plank in your own eye. Now, was Jesus saying we shouldn't go around looking into people's eyes at the specks of dust, but we should look at great big planks in our own eye and stare at them? Or was he trying to say that we shouldn't get distracted by mistakes we think we see in other people and say, oh, how silly they are, did you see what they did? And try to correct them. But instead focus on ourselves and not judge others and try to be the best we can be. So you see, so many lessons in the Bible, but what about the lesson on making wise decisions? That's what I'm interested in. Now let's have a look what he said. Oh, I think he's using a metaphor again. He said, if you want to make wise decisions, then you have to be like the wise builder who built his house on the rock. What does Jesus mean by that? Does he mean I literally have to find some tools and start building my house on a rock? I'm here at a work site, but I'm not a builder. I've never built a house before in my whole life. Maybe I need to read on to try and understand. He says, whoever hears my words and teachings and does them is like the wise builder who built his house on the rock. And the rain came down, and the floods came up, and the wind blew around the house and beat it, but it did not fall down because it was built on the rock. And then he goes on to say, whoever hears my words and teachings but doesn't do them is like the foolish builder who built his house on the sand. And the rain came down, and the floods came up, and the wind blew and beat on the house, and it fell with a great big fall because it was built on the sand. So Jesus is saying here that if I want to make wise decisions with good consequences, then I have to build my house on the rock. I think if I want to understand this better, I'd better find a wise builder and see what they have to say. Must be a builder around here somewhere. Aren't there any wise builders around? Wise builder! Oh, you look like a wise builder. Can you come over here? I'd like to ask you some questions. Hello, what's your name?
Hello, my name is Emmanuel.
Hello, Emmanuel the builder.
Hello.
Emmanuel, how many houses have you built?
A lot of houses.
Oh, and have they all stayed standing or have any fallen down?
They're all standing.
Oh, that's great. Well, that must mean that you're a wise builder.
I hope so.
Well, what's the secret? How do you become a wise builder?
By making wise decisions when you're building.
So, what's the most important decision you have to make when you think about building a house?
The most important thing about building a house is making sure that the foundations are strong and firm so that the house will last.
So what kind of foundations does a house need? What do I need to build a house on?
The strongest foundations are rock or bedrock on which to build a house.
Oh, that's just what Jesus said. The rock. And why is rock the strongest foundation? Why should you build a house on a rock?
Because rock is firm and stable and won't move and won't be affected by the weather or the environmental conditions, which means that the house you build will stay firm and strong.
But what if I wanted to build my house on something else? Like, I don't know, sand, for example. I mean, there's so much sand everywhere, and it would probably be much easier and faster. You could even build a house by the seaside and sunbathe and swim and fish and sail, and it would be so quick. You could do it instantly.
Yes, you could probably build it very quickly, but the house would be built on foundations which aren't strong, so the house won't last and it will fall down.
You mean if I was to build a house on the sand, even though it's faster and easier, it wouldn't last?
That's right.
What would happen to it?
Well, if there was bad weather, the weather would affect the foundation, it would affect the sand and make it move and make it unstable, and so the house would collapse.
Oh. Well, I think we're going to test your knowledge, Mr. Emmanuel the builder. Let's try it out. So, if my house is built on a rock, and the rain comes down, and the floods swell up, and the wind blows around it, oh, you're right. It's not falling at all. It's staying quite steady and stable. Well, let's try it with the sand. Emmanuel the builder, if I wanted to build my house on the sand, the rain comes down, the floods come up, the winds blow. You're absolutely right. The house has fallen right down. Well, that's been very, very helpful. Thank you, Emmanuel the builder. You seem to be a very wise builder indeed, with all your protective clothing and your good advice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Now that I have spoken with the wise builder, I can understand what Jesus was saying when he said that in order to make wise decisions, we have to build our house on the rock. And what is my house? My house is my life. It's my whole life which I need to build on good, solid foundations, on the rock. And what is the rock? The rock is God's teaching on how I should live and how I should make wise decisions. So I shouldn't make decisions when I'm upset and angry and full of emotions, because my feelings are like the great gale force wind that blows around and makes a lot of noise. But when it calms down and goes away, then I am peaceful and calm, and I will make decisions that I will look back on and be proud of. I shouldn't make decisions that just plop into my head like heavy raindrops without thinking about them and without considering the consequences. Not just what makes me happy right now, but what will make me happy and others happy in the future. And I should get advice from people with experience. And I shouldn't make decisions that will take away all the good hard work that I have done, like a great flood that comes up and destroys everything in its path. But I should keep going. I should never give up. Keep building on everything that I have learnt, so that I can be a light in the world. I can be salt in the earth. I can have good judgment, and so that I can make wise decisions with good consequences, just like the wise builder who built his house on the rock.